look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, like, I do these things and I need to change them, or else you're never going to change it.
And if you say you're not, you're lying.
You're lying.
You're lying.
The bottle's like this and I'm just scrolling and I catch myself like, Edith, you're teaching your clients not to do this. What are you doing?
It's kind of refreshing to just stop caring so much and just let it out. I can't fully let it out because I'd probably get fired.
The amount of news that I see and read about the human trafficking of kids, that's another level of traumatizing in itself.
People think it happens in a faraway place, but it happens in your very backyard.
I don't think you've accepted about yourself that you're stubborn.
How is that good? I said, give me some
working
Oh,
on.
good.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on my very first episode. I appreciate everyone's support and everyone's lovely messages. And today's guest was Araksya Karapetyan. She was the first guest, and I'm very honored she accepted the invitation. We talked so much and such meaningful conversations. First, we talked about inflation. Then we talked about human trafficking. We delved into family, morals, how she was raised. You guys all see that she's very close with her grandparents. I asked her meaningful questions like, what did she learn from them? She was so open and so eloquent, and she was nice enough to answer. So let's join the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy it as I enjoyed the conversation with her. Thank you. Araksya, it's always been so curious to me that you're a journalist and you see and hear sad stories, I would say. I would call it sad. I don't know how you would want to label it, but it's sad. There's a lot of bad news. Yeah. And you're a mama. How do you cope with that?
I didn't realize how much becoming a parent, changes how you view the news and consume the news, and now how it impacts me. Of course, prior to having children, when things are sad, things are sad. We can all agree on a death of a child abuse story, anything of that nature impacts someone when they're human. But once you have kids, it just hits so differently. And I remember I had just had Sevon, my first daughter, and I had just gotten back to work, and we were about to interview this man whose son was being pushed in a stroller by the wife's sister. She was young too. And they were perfectly in the right to cross the crosswalk, but some lady who was older and a drunk driver hit and killed the baby. And I walked into the makeup room and I saw him just sitting there, just had that staring into space look, like he was there because he wanted to talk about what happened, but I felt like he hadn't processed it quite yet. He was just going through the motions. He was just staring into space. So I walked up to him to introduce myself. And the second I just looked at him, I started crying. Like I couldn't even control myself. And then I felt horrible that now I'm crying and I'm, he's about to do this interview, and I've reminded him of the tragedy. Of course, he knows this tragedy, but I walked out, and shortly after we have to sit and do the interview now live. It's not recorded, it's live on television. And I was really having a hard time doing this. But that's why now, you understood. Now I have a baby, and God forbid you imagine yourself in this situation. Stories like that just are really hard to shake off. Even this past week, the trial for the little boy who was caught in that road rage incident, and
oh my goodness, yeah,
he was shot and killed in his car seat. That one was so hard for me because driving, I would look in the rear view mirror and see my kids' car seats, right? And I think, what? It's so relatable. Road rage, right?
Very.
You're driving.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah, you're human.
So those stories just hit so hard, and it does take me to a really dark place.
Does it really?
It does. It does. That's why sometimes I have to just walk away. Like, otherwise it starts to consume me. Like, I can't shake it. Even world events,
Power ups,
world events just really take a toll. So even just unfollowing certain accounts because I don't want to see these images. I just don't want to see it. I have to
that's
do
your
it for
right.
work,
That's
you
your
know.
right.
I have to do it for work. I have to talk about it, even
Mhm.
though I try not to look sometimes on the screen for certain stories because it hits me hard. But I just have decided I can't because everything hits me so differently now.
I agree. I feel like I can relate to that because I've become more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to see or hear any bad news anymore. I have severe anxiety about it. Even at night, I feel like I can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll have panic attacks
Yeah.
because it's too real. And I think I don't know. Since COVID, I think life changed so much. COVID happened, and then the war, and then I don't know, everything
All
just
together.
all together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you feel like it's hard to cope with life nowadays?
I think 2020 was the hardest year of my life.
Was it?
And it wasn't even COVID, it was the war, honestly. That just
Oh my God, yeah.
that just destroyed me.
The images, right, Araksya?
It just everything. I mean, it was the fact that, this is all happening. What can I do? How do I
Yeah.
do something, right? And then the pressure to do something.
Yes.
And then how do you make other people care about this who don't even care about this? It was just a lot. And I could just feel the pressure take over. But the most useful thing I could do was just to work and, put stories together.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't going to change perhaps the outcome, or I didn't have much power in the end. But by keeping busy, by feeling like I was contributing something, helped me get through that. But 2020 was definitely, I would say, the worst year. And I haven't really come out of that. I think I've talked about this. I feel as though, and I don't want to misuse and make it seem as though people throw around the word PTSD, the term, but I do feel like I had it or have it. I do because I just, it brings a lot that
it's
I have to walk away.
100%. I agree. And it doesn't have to be like a diagnosable. You can feel the trauma that I mean, it was pretty traumatic for everybody. And I'm sure for you as well, because yes, exactly what you mentioned, that there was a lot of pressure from people, like talk about it, report about it. And like, how can you just, I mean, you're one person. So I definitely can relate to, when you say PTSD.
Yeah,
absolutely. In the last couple of years, well, before I ask this question, I want to know, like, first I want to understand, just for my educational purpose, like, how did you get into journalism? Like, I'm curious. Why journalism, and how did you get into journalism? Because it's so awesome.
I truly stumbled into it. I mean, looking back, it perfectly makes sense. I would take like a shampoo bottle and talk into it. I would put on shows. I would take all of
in Armenia.
In Armenia, and then even here, I would take all of the magazines and I would look through them and pretend to deliver the news as a kid. But it wasn't something I was pursuing at all. You grow up being told to be a doctor, lawyer, preferably doctor in my family.
4 choices.
Yeah. What are the other 2?
Engineer.
Oh, okay.
Lawyer, doctor.
I didn't get that.
Or what was the other one? Like a teacher? I don't know. Like, that's all the choices.
Teacher's acceptable too.
Yeah. I mean, your mom was a professor. So.
Right. No, so it was just, that was kind of the focus. And I volunteered at the hospital. I did all these things. And I was like, I do not want to be here. This is like not my thing at all. I thought of politics as well and interned for a congresswoman for a while. And I did not care for that either. So I just ended up going to Syracuse University, and they're known for their journalism program.
Where is this?
New York, Syracuse, New York.
Wow.
And Newhouse School of Communications is one of the best schools of communication, which I did not know when I went, which is really funny.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah,
Wow,
I went, and I ended up double majoring once I realized, what this school is known for, and then I started, going to the classes. But even then, it wasn't really sticking with me. It wasn't doing anything for me until I actually went out there and did it. it's so different from what you learn in school. I don't know how much they've changed the journalism program. I mean,
Yes.
things are so different. Journalism is different. When you say journalism now, it makes me laugh as well, because sometimes
Tell me.
I say the term, I'll say, oh yeah, this is why I went to journalism school, when we're doing something that seems frivolous or mindless. And I joke about it. We all do, actually. But that's kind of what it's become. Like, even now, you become a news personality. People refer to you as a news personality. And your personality is part of why people will watch. Because everyone's doing the same thing. If you watch all the local
True.
stations, everyone's covering the same story, basically.
Right.
So why are you choosing this instead of that? It's because you're connected to the team or the person.
Wow.
So that's, you're a personality now. And it was a bit of an uncomfortable place to be, because when you're trained in journalism, you're supposed to be unbiased, not share your thoughts or opinions. But now, in a way, you're walking this weird fine line where certain things you can, but you have to be comfortable enough to basically expose yourself and not be afraid that you're going to offend someone. In the beginning, it's hard to do that because you want to be liked, you're a people pleaser, and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yes.
And then there comes a point where, people like authenticity, and people want, to agree or disagree with you.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of refreshing to just stop caring so much and just let it out.
Yeah.
I can't fully let it out because I'd probably get fired, but like, let it out to a degree. And I think that also comes with experience and also age. I don't know about you, but I feel as though you would say the older you get, the less you're filtered.
Yes.
And I'm definitely feeling that. And
do you love it?
I really like it. I do. I do like it.
That.
It feels
Embrace
good.
that, right? It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's an interesting topic that you bring up, because I think that authenticity is definitely more respected. But I do feel like certain news stations have lost a lot of credibility because of that authenticity. Do you feel like people gravitate more towards independent journalists now versus the news personalities? I mean, what are your thoughts about
It
that?
depends. I mean, you're talking network news, local news. They're two different animals.
Right.
Network is different than local. And for the most part, local doesn't have an angle or an agenda. You're just talking about the day of stories, or you're doing some interesting pieces that, which I like to do, where you're highlighting a community, something the community cares about. Network is different because, yes, based on what it is you're watching, you're getting a lot of a certain type of opinion. So it's your responsibility to take a little bit of everything to then form your opinion. But most people don't do that. You tend to watch what you agree with, right? And then that's the narrative you go with. And I don't really enjoy watching network news because it is just one extreme or the other extreme, and it is too much opinion. I don't want to know that. I just tell me what it is and I'll form my opinion, right?
I understand that, yeah.
So that's what you have to, you meaning me, what I have to be aware of, and I try to be aware of. I'm not interested in sharing my thoughts on things that are controversial because, quite honestly, oftentimes I don't really have solid feelings on anything. And that's one of the skills that I think it's important as a journalist to be able to listen to anyone's point of view and see why they feel that way and understand why they're coming from the place they're coming from. And I truly think I do a pretty good job of that. I can't even, if you told me you have to feel a certain way about something, I have a hard time doing that because I'm like, well, let me hear that. Okay, I totally get it. Let me hear your point of view. I get that too. I could see what experiences in your life or what current situation you're in would lead you to feel the way you feel or be the way you are. And so it's almost like a psychologist's job, right? Yes. To really understand the depth of what's going on.
What happens when you go home, though? Do those opinions arise and you're just like, oh, this
Not
is how
really.
I feel?
I mean, maybe, but I'm not, I don't get crazy about anything really.
So that's like a boundary you're talking about. Like you've developed pretty good boundaries.
I'm not even consciously doing it. I feel as though that's just how I am.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So the sad news get to you and they're kind of hard, but
Well,
then
those are
those are true,
they
genuine
tug at your heartstrings, you know.
Of course.
And
Of course.
and as a parent, how many times do you hear like, this is my worst nightmare? Well, there's a list of my worst nightmares at this point.
100%.
Everything is my worst nightmare.
I'll tell you right now, the amount of news that I see and read about the sex human trafficking of kids, that's another level of traumatizing in itself. And it happens in this country.
It does.
It does. And
people think it happens in a faraway place, but it happens in your very backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. So my curiosity is like, I genuinely don't think that a lot of, it's not covered enough. And not a lot of journalists and news channels, they're not really addressing it or talking about it. Do you feel like it's something where you can't touch that topic?
No. I think sometimes it's one of those topics that's complicated too, you know? And so sometimes what would be compelling is to talk to someone who, say, was part of sex trafficking or a victim of sex trafficking. Then you run into things where that person's so traumatized, perhaps they don't want to talk to you, or they're underage and you can't talk to them. So there are a lot of barriers that come with a story like that. And you have to dedicate the time to do it correctly. And so the news cycle is a 24-hour like grind. And it's hard for people to take the time or have the resources to do stories like that justice, is how I would explain that.
Would you ever be interested to cover topics?
I have, and I'm involved with an organization that I've been involved with since I was in Portland. That it's about sex trafficking, child exploitation. I started getting involved with them because we were doing stories about missing kids, and so since then I've been in touch with them, and I'm part of their board. I do the media stuff with them. So, yes, it's a real thing. And I think you're right as far as people's view of how it's happening in front of you, but you don't really realize it or know it, or maybe you care not to know about it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to acknowledge it.
I just don't think that it's covered enough where people know about it. I mean, there's people that, look, what happens is that you become pretty paranoid as a parent. Like, I don't feel comfortable allowing my 11-year-old son to go buy chips from 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
It's to that level. So, but there are people, when you say that to, they laugh at you like, what's wrong? We're not living at that age anymore. Yes, we are. It's worse. It's not safe anymore. So, but I feel that if it's covered enough, people will be more aware of it. And I don't know, I'm not necessarily saying we can save the world by covering it, but it's something very, very sensitive.
Well, it's not just trafficking though. I mean, just the community and just violence and how things have changed. You know, as a kid, I remember I would take my little red wagon and go sell Girl Scout cookies like all over the neighborhood by myself. I would never allow my children to do that.
Now, right?
Absolutely not. I'm like, or even things like sleepovers.
Oh, yes.
You know, like, you don't know who the parents are technically or who's visiting from the family. Yes. You don't know. Like, so you're sending your kid into someone's house and you have no idea. Like,
100%.
Someone I work with brought up a good point, which I'd never even thought about. They said that when their kids used to go to sleepovers, they would ask parents, do you own a gun? I'm like, whoa. That had not even crossed my mind. Just because you don't know how do they store the gun, where, you know, can the kids access it? These crazy things that now start to take over and consume you, right? Yeah. And you don't want to go crazy, but you have to be aware that, you know, this is the reality.
You mean, you know the parents, but you don't know the parents. Like, it's one thing knowing them, but to understand the way they process life and whatever they
have. Or how they make decisions.
It's a different level. Absolutely. So one question that I wrote, this is actually quite interesting. I have pretty important questions. It's many people moving away from California. What do you think the reason is? Like, there's so many people that just...
There's so many reasons, but the biggest is it's so expensive to live
inflation.
Here.
So what was the statistics? What is it? Last 3 years, more than 1 million people left California, and they're all going to red states, like more conservative states.
Well, I don't know the specifics to speak about that like why they're going to red states necessarily, but from just talking to people, it does come down to finances, or someone who's like wants to have a business or own a business, it's very difficult to do a business here in
It
California.
is.
It's hard.
It's a struggle here.
There's just so much red tape, and there's just everything.
Mhm.
There's so many obstacles that are in front of you. Or you want to go raise your, I mean, we talk about even celebrities, for example, not even the average person. They want to be out of this scene. They want to be out of this, and they want to be in like a small town.
More private.
Small town. But many years ago, I remember when I was in Portland, so many Californians were moving there. And I don't think the Oregonians cared for that because it was so much easier to sell a home here and go there and buy giant
Mansion.
I don't know currently how that plays, but I remember even then it was just that was the beginning of it all almost.
Araksya, do you think that they're more good people versus bad, or it's more bad people versus good people?
I'd like to think there's more good people than bad.
You'd like to think? What's the logic, Araksya, saying versus what we feel?
I'm just surrounded by so much negativity with my work that I'm covering bad things
all the time.
All the time. There's a saying in news, if it bleeds, it leads, meaning like, people want to hear the bad stuff. And so there's not enough good stuff out. There's good stuff out there. I just think we need to cover more of that and to really spread hope. It creates hope in people and it highlights that there is good in the world.
Do you feel like you're disappointed in humanity?
Many days, yes. Many days. But, you have to pick and choose where to find joy. I think that it's the simple things that we as humans take for granted on a daily basis. And little things like the fact that you woke up this morning and you have all of your limbs and you were able to get yourself ready, drive, like that's a luxury, drive. You have this great new business and office, by the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, it's these like everyday little moments that we 100%. Don't really appreciate. Yeah. But then when I'm around a story where I brought up the limbs, because if I'm around a story where someone had to have an amputation or was born, God forbid, with some kind of a disease, right? At that moment, then I start thinking and appreciating the fact that it's these little things I'm not appreciating. And then I feel bad about it because I'm using someone else's misfortune to then remind myself and put things in perspective. But I think we don't do that enough as people until there's tragedy that strikes, and then it kind of wakes you up. It's like cold water thrown in your face, right? But it's taking and finding joy in just the everyday smallest things that would make you appreciate life and others. But we don't do that.
No.
Enough.
Enough. Yeah. I think I always think about this every time on, to drive home. I'm like, what is going on with humanity? And why are we where we are today? Has it always been like this? I mean, are we older and we're understanding a lot more? But it's unfortunate that kindness is not accepted anymore. It's not respected anymore. And you become more sad.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not like anything's changed other than we're exposed to more. And also the social media thing is really just, it just consumes everyone and takes over everything. And it increases what you're exposed to. And then it brings about people that you otherwise wouldn't be looking at, following, or listening to. All of a sudden, this person is talking about a topic perhaps you've never thought about, and perhaps it's a negative thing, and it starts to impact how you feel.
Yes.
Right? So it's just surrounds us. That's why you have to walk away.
Yes.
Truly.
I think you did a really good job creating those boundaries, because you're off Instagram Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes.
How is that working out? Are you able to do it?
That was my New Year's resolution. You know what? It was 2020, going into 2021. It was after the COVID war, the war stuff really just,
It was draining.
So it was the time I decided I'm going to take the weekends off. And not only is it like a mental cleanse, it cleanses my soul. It truly does. It's just a cleanse.
Yes.
And I'm able to be more present at home, because we're programmed to just take our phone and without even thinking about it, you just hit what is it?
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
Automatically, you're on.
not even think about why do we do that? It's crazy.
It's an addiction.
It's crazy.
becomes
Even
an
if you
addiction.
order coffee and you're in line for 2 seconds, you can't help yourself but to take your phone and
100%.
hit that icon. Why can't you
Oh my
just stand there and
gosh.
do nothing, right?
100%.
So
Oh.
I've carried that on, and it feels good. I'm going to continue
I'm so proud
to do
of
that.
you. Good. Sometimes when I'm feeding my daughter and like I'll have the bottle and she's just like over here and I'm feeding her. I'm like, okay, well I have nothing. All right, the bottle's like this and I'm just scrolling, and I catch myself like, Edith, you're teaching your clients not to do this. What are you doing? It's really really hard. It takes a lot of practice.
Wait, I think you're the one who'd shared. I think I saw it on your Instagram. Was it you where there's the mom, the dad, and the kid, and the kids they're on the bed. They're on the
real.
Yes, they're on the bed, and the kid. What was the kid doing? Drawing or doing something?
Yeah, he kept he kept showing his. He drew a picture. He kept showing his
wanted
parents.
to show the parents.
And the mom was just scrolling. The dad was just scrolling.
They weren't paying attention.
They weren't. And
so
he got
when
older.
I saw that, I was so.
So I did
sad.
something good then.
When I saw that, first of all, I felt so guilty.
Yeah, I think
because
we
all do it.
100%.
And then I was sad, and I keep thinking about that because that happens a lot. It does.
Yeah, we have to be authentic. Like in order for something to change, you have to be so brutally honest with yourself. Like look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, like, I do these things and I need to change them, or else you're never going to change it. So I'm being honest. Like I'm definitely guilty of that.
I think everyone is. And if you say you're not, you're lying.
You're lying.
You're lying if you say if you haven't done that, you're lying. Yeah.
Another question. I feel that many people have lost trust in the news, journalists in general, and then now they're leading more towards TikTok, Twitter, and I think that's where people are getting their information from.
Which is a dangerous place to get your information.
So what do you think is going on? Why are people so disappointed in these news channels? Like a lot of, and I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of misinformation, especially when the vaccines were coming out, and then there's like different information now that it's harming you, then they were saying it's good for you. I don't know, it's just messy, Araksya. It's messy. There's a lot of information. People just don't know how to process, and the trust it's gone.
I don't think it's necessarily even news. I think it's just trust is gone in people.
General.
Yeah, and I think that the more you have people just being experts out there on social media, the more confused the average person becomes. So you're being bombarded by facts or actual facts. Everyone has an agenda. Like everyone's pushing something. So it's really important for you to educate yourself.
Yes.
Only you can do this. You have to educate yourself and arm yourself with knowledge. You can't just rely on one source or just one expert or one person, because then you're either going along with that narrative or you're so comfortable in your own whatever it is you're thinking that you're leaning into just that rather than opening yourself up and really doing the research yourself. There's no one, you can't just watch one person or one outlet and think, okay, great, I have everything I need. It's up to, that's a lazy way of looking at it. You have to do the work.
True. Do you feel like journalists, do you feel like you can't really be yourself on TV?
No.
Like, so you can't?
No, I can.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I can. That's what I'm saying. I think over the years, with the way news has changed and it's become very personality driven, and at the same time, the more experience you have and the more comfortable you become, then you're much more open. You're not just sitting there like a robot talking. I mean, first of all, anyone can do that. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people can. You want to stand out. You want to be different. So oftentimes, some of the things we talk about are just parenting things or just everyday life things. And that's when you can inject your own thoughts and your opinion. And so that's when you have to be honest with that. I have to admit that, yes, you know what? I say it all the time. I'm like, we do these studies about screen time and experts say like, do this, don't do this. And I'm like, you know what? I do everything wrong. And would I like to change it? Yes, I would. Am I going to change it? Probably not, because the truth is, when we're out to dinner and the only way to control my kids is to just give them the screen so we can finish a
Guilty.
nice meal,
Guilty.
I'm going to do that. Would it be better if they were reading a book or coloring? I mean, we try that too, sure. But if it's not going to work, yes, they're going to get the screen time. They are.
100%.
Sorry.
No, I'm guilty of the same.
So I'm saying, actually admitting those moments
Yes.
makes people relate to you, and also you're being authentic, you're being honest. You can't just say, experts say this and that, and I'm just going to just read
Do
what was
it.
there and
Yes.
move on and not
100%. I
share
agree.
my real life with you.
Araksya, what's one thing that you have learned to love about yourself that before you couldn't accept? Now you're like,
Oh my
hey,
gosh.
now I'm like, that's a therapy question.
I know.
I'm like, oh.
Oh wow, I don't even know. Help me out. Give me ideas.
I don't know, something about your character,
choice.
maybe.
Can I
Like something about your personality, maybe that you've worked on, and like now you're in a place where you're like, oh, like I really appreciate this about myself.
Let me see. Can I ask my husband? Can I phone a friend?
Yeah. Yes. Who's on A Millionaire?
Wait, can I? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. He'll say nothing. He'll give me
What?
a list.
I
No,
should
I'm
call
kidding.
my husband.
He'll give me a list of things I have to work on. Hold on. It was gonna be funny. I'll warn him and then I'll put him on. Hi, do you have a quick second? Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker, so just know that, number one. And number two, I need you to answer this question. Okay, ready? Okay. So I can't think for myself. What is like one thing about myself that I have learned to accept that perhaps I didn't like about myself,
Yeah.
but now I do? That I've worked on. What?
You accepted about yourself that you earlier maybe, I don't know, that maybe you're not going to be an international correspondent, like that you wanted to do that, but you've accepted that you rather be around your family.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've
Ooh.
changed my goals. Okay, that's good. Give me something else about my personality, but make it good because, just don't tell the truth, the full truth.
I don't know. I just gave you one.
No, but I want something about my personality, my
That you've changed.
amazing personality.
I don't think you've accepted about yourself that you're stubborn.
How is that good? I said, give me
He's
something.
working
Oh,
on.
good.
I said, give me something. Oh, you think I've accepted being stubborn?
No, that's not.
So you need to work on that.
I've accepted that I'm a horrible person. What am I gonna say? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Just what do you think I need to work? I'll change it. What do you think I need to work on? Don't be too harsh.
I don't want to. I don't know. Not to call me in the middle of the day when I'm busy.
Araksya.
I actually thought of something. I know what it is. I'm gonna hang up because I don't want to tell you what it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Araksya, you're stubborn?
Oh, I'm very
What?
stubborn. I'm very stubborn. No, I was just thinking, talking to him made me realize to prioritize things differently in my life. So I've been so career motivated and
Yeah.
oriented. It's just been my driving
Yeah.
force. Actually, what he said about international correspondent, that was my goal. My goal was once upon a time to travel the world and be where all the action was. And that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say it was selfish because when you don't have a family and you have nothing really other than yourself, why is that selfish? That's exactly what you should be doing, right?
Of course.
But once you do have a family and you do have kids and this and that, like you have to put aside some of the things you just want yourself because now you're impacting your decision and what
True.
you're doing is impacting so many people. So
True.
I definitely accepted, and I'm perfectly fine with that the last thing I want to do right now is to be in any kind of a dangerous place around the world.
Away from
Where
kids.
before it was exciting and enticing and that's what I wanted. It's the last thing I would want. As far as prioritizing, I go back to, yes, everything was about career. That's the only thing I care about. Now I still have to do a better job at prioritizing, because I think I give so much of myself to my job. I also give so much of myself to community events or activities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really tired and I have very little left for what actually matters, which is my family,
Yes.
my kids, and my husband. I feel like sometimes he gets the short end of the stick, because whatever I have left, which is little, is going to the kids, and then he's
Yes.
not getting anything. So
I agree.
that is one thing that I need to do better in, for sure.
I love that. And I am 100% you. Honestly, I'm there with you, because you're right. I have been so career oriented. Like, this was the goal that I was working for. Because, you have to like create your name first. Like, you have to be somebody in the community for people to actually sit down, listen to you, for people to consider your invitation, right? And I'm honored to be here with you. Like, honestly, you are actually, let me just say this before anything. I was so scared to reach out to you.
For this?
No.
Oh.
For the news. This, I was like, okay, she's like the best. Like, I'll reach out. But to be on the news, it was COVID. It was COVID
yes,
time.
yes.
And you weren't following me at that time. I kept going. I'm like, Araksya, can you read your DMs? Araksya, I was commenting under your pictures. And then finally you commented back with, oh my God, yes. And then you opened my DM. And then I said, Araksya, I want to be on the news. I'm a therapist. Let's talk about cyberbullying. And you're like, let's go. So I am so grateful. I can say this honestly. By you giving me that opportunity, so many opportunities opened because of that. Like, I think it's always important for a person to believe in you. Like, it takes that one person. And when that one person believes in you, like, that door opens, so many other doors open. So thank you so much. You did. You believed in me. And because of that, I was on the news, that I had clients because of that. I was able to open up an office because of that, because I was new. Everything was new.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm grateful. I just want you to know that you opened a lot of doors for me.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's our job to do that for people when,
it's a human thing to do.
Whenever it is, wherever it is you're going, and let's say you're getting somewhere, you got somewhere, to turn around and help someone else come along the way as well.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that there's some days where I sit and I'm like, what am I doing? Every job, of course, has some repetition, right? Every job. But sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, how am I doing anything really for people? But then when you say things like that, and then I think about moments like that, or even some of these stories I've been able to do about whether it's the Armenian genocide or actually just more about Armenian culture, which I think is so important. It's a happier thing to share with people. Then I feel fulfilled. And that's when you feel like, I'm not out there finding cure for cancer. I wish I could. I'm not doing something like that. But in my own way, with whatever it is I'm doing, I'm choosing to do something where I'm benefiting my community, right? The society overall. So that's something I have to remind myself, because sometimes, you just have these like moments where you're like, what am I doing? What is my purpose? What is the point of all of this?
Right.
What's the point?
Yes. And I relate. Yes, absolutely. You can say things like that. But I always believe in this too. Even if you, Araksya, even if sometimes you don't get like that thank you, which sometimes I feel like as people, as good people, things that we do, it's not really seen sometimes, and we don't get that validation, and we seek that. We're humans. Everybody wants a validation, and just know that there definitely are people who are thanking you, maybe not out loud, but the universe is giving you what you genuinely deserve. And and you can see it through your children, you can see it through like your family. It's loud. So maybe you don't hear a thank you or an acknowledgement, but God allows you to see all these beautiful things. Like, you have beautiful family. That's such a blessing. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my God. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I know that it's a lot going on. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Wow, that was so beautiful.